So, is there any way to know for sure, right now, if you are dreaming or not?
I don't think
Yeah, we all come to this conclusion, right? So far.
like Rumi said, like the thing you're seeking, it's seeking you.
It's seeking you. Yeah. Right.
That was before the I, like the sense of individual, whether you are in this physical plane or in astral plane of lucid dreaming, there's still a sense of I.
Mm-hmm.
But that it's like where that I comes from. Welcome to the No Point podcast with Cory and Tielo. How's it going, Cory?
Feeling good, feeling good. Yeah.
Cool. So this is our second encounter of many talks we've had, and try to share our thoughts with the world, or just talk for the fun of it.
It's for us. Forget you people.
Forget you people.
Oh, you're down there.
They're down
Okay.
there, and the audio is right there.
Mhm.
All right. So we were talking earlier about the difference between different states of perception of the consciousness, that you can perceive this reality, right? Like the human world, but also there are another planes of existence that you can be into, exploring within us or without. And the difference between, for example, dreaming, that we all dream and we are all awake, but they're like lucid dreaming, or it could be astral projection with more lucidity, but there's still the difference between you, even though you are a free spirit, and the outside, right? And I think that in my research I found out that when there's still the difference, like the individuation from the existence, from the universe, you're still in a point of view of the universe. You are still two, right? Like you are one and there's a bunch of things outside.
Mhm.
But would you say, what would you say it's the highest, so to speak,
Mhm.
way of perceiving?
Mhm. Well, I'm not going to claim to know what the highest way of perceiving is. That's the first thing. Um, because anything I share would be only from my experience, right? I mean, I could quote some pretty smart people, and that's easy to do, right? Um, but you mentioned the dream state. You mentioned a few elements that I caught there, and my question is this, just a simple question.
Okay.
Right. Is there any way to actually know right now, and I mean to really, really know for sure, with proof, with a conclusion, if we're dreaming or not? Now, don't forget, there's pain in dreams, physical sensations in dreams,
Smells.
there's everything. All the senses are functioning in a dream, right? You have relationships in dreams, you have a body in a dream, right?
The sensation of I-ness, like you
Mhm.
are in some other world,
You can
but
even
you are.
read a book in a dream, and you can see the words as you're reading,
All right.
right? So, is there any way to know for sure, right now, if you are dreaming or not?
I don't think
Yeah, we all come to this conclusion, right? So far,
so
people
far.
that I've met, right?
But in this I, this ego, this identity that we are formed, perhaps of our language, our society, family, our expectations, whatever we expect it to be in this world, in this three-dimensional world, we tend to generate an identity, and that identity you can perceive yourself in a waking state that we could say is this one, uh, and you can perceive yourself in lucid dreaming or dreaming, but also you can, like I've launched, I had this dialogue with Nancy Trivelato, and she teaches astral projection for 30 years now.
Right, Nancy, yes. You told me about Nancy, yeah.
Yeah, so I've come with their Academy of Consciousness, International Academy of Consciousness, and they have this really amazing way to explain how can you explore from this eye, but not in this concept, but more free, like planes of existence that doesn't depend on this physicality. But at the end of their research, that they have researched a lot of what they experience in other dimensions, other entities that doesn't have a physical body. But at the end, they have like this void that they don't know how consciousness arises, or what, or where does it end? Like high, and then they speak about these realms of mental body that it's like without physical form, and it's like everything going in big packs of information in another planes. And they described an interesting thing that they called Homo sapiens Serenissimus, like the consciousness, the more evolved consciousness, that it's so serene that they've encountered in the research. But they don't know if that consciousness is like at the end of the evolving consciousness, or how it was begun. Like our individual consciousness and the everyone consciousness. Like they don't really know how did it started, or is it going to end? Like, is it going to be the end of the road of evolving? And they're like, and now what? So there's this gap that I think that, from my standpoint of view, like the Buddhism or the void or the vacuum can help us understand, like that was before the I, like the sense of individual, whether you are in this physical plane or in astral plane of lucid dreaming, there's still a sense of I. But that, it's like where that I comes from. It's like like the gap on the many people, like they think that they know, but it's hard, to agree on many points of view that what is this? How did consciousness is?
Well, yeah, it's a big question, isn't it? Right?
We love
what
big
is
questions.
what is the nature of that consciousness, right? Something is very interesting, because whenever you ask the question, right, what is present and conscious, right? What is present and conscious at the same time? What is now present and what is conscious? Unfortunately, the past is not going to help you at all there, right? No, because it's an empirical investigation into what is arising now, and what is aware of what is arising now, right?
Yeah.
Right. So going into a conceptual past, and I'll share with you why I think that's important to make a distinction. Because as soon as a human being, Homo sapien sapien, right, talks about the past, what's actually happening in the brain isn't a memory. What's happening in the brain is that the brain is sweeping across the cortex, picking up a bunch of bits and pieces, right? And we're talking about bioelectrical chemical reactions, and piecing together a bunch of images and concepts, and then labeling it as the past. That's what's happening in the brain, and this is current science that I know of, right? So this may not be so useful for this question, right?
Yes, the past.
So when you when you ask a question, where did it all begin, right? Well, of course, it always begins here. It begins now, and this is the answer to the koan who dies, right?
There's
The
a
answer,
koan that only says who dies.
yeah, there is a question, right? A spiritual question: who dies, right? But in order to find out who dies, you have to understand who the subject is that is supposed to be living. You follow me?
Yes.
You can't answer the question who dies without knowing what it is that's going to be dying.
Or the perceptor of it's
Yeah.
alive.
Exactly. So
Like
ultimately,
self-awareness, right? Like I exist.
okay, yeah, I exist, right? What is conscious and aware? But ultimately, the question who dies is going to take you like a little thread all the way back to who was born. Who was born, right? And
When?
this is an unanswerable question because you figure out that all of that is conceptual, right? You figure out that all of that is story, right? All of it. Yeah, sure, I have a birth certificate and a driver's license, and I have a passport that has a name on it, right? Of course, I do, right? But ultimately, if all that you can find is present moment awareness and images, perceptions, and thoughts, you're going to ultimately come to the conclusion, more or less, that you are born right now. Right? And then the ultimate answer is revealed, and I won't give the answer away. But the answer is revealed in this way. But I'm going to come back to one more element that I really liked about what you said is like, what is it, right? If you could reach out, so you have this present consciousness, right? It's present and it's conscious, right? In order to feel into this experience of being present in consciousness, you're, without even knowing it, doing a meditation called awareness of awareness, which is taught in many, many, many different schools.
Okay.
Awareness of awareness. You're pointing the arrow back at what's aware.
That's so.
Yeah, and we use the word back because it just helps. It isn't necessarily back or forwards, or it's not space-time located, right? But the question that I really, really like is if you could reach out and touch and feel that which is present and conscious right now, you now have the essence of the question, who am I? Which is the same as the question, what is it? Right? You can figure out what objects are your whole life. But don't you find it funny that you wouldn't first try to find out what the subject is?
That's exactly my point.
Right. Yeah, it sounded like it.
I'm
yeah.
amazed, like how many humans like this kind of thinking is really important for me because I see most people like taking for granted the self of I, and then go in the world and like go like everyone is running to get something, but they don't ask themselves like what are we like everyone. It seems that we at some point of children could be like we have this identity or explanation of the universe, could be the Big Bang or the creation of God or the cigüeña in Spanish, with like you were brought by the cigüeña,
Yeah,
by
yeah.
house, and you're okay. So the cigüeña brought me. So in my research, in my dialogues with people, I've encountered that most of them have this sense of I that it's based, like it's really hard to question what the foundation of the explanation or the sense of self on the sense of meaning of existence. They have it like, and they don't think about it. Like, oh yeah, the Big Bang, yeah, for sure, 1.1 million times smaller than the pinhead, and oh yeah, and where was that point floating? Who put it there?
Right.
And it's like,
Right.
oh yeah, but the Big Bang, and yeah, I am a scientist, and I know.
Yeah.
You don't know shit.
No, we see the mathematical equations that prove to us that there is such a thing called gravitational waves, right? It's like, Okay, so where do we go with this? Right. Right.
It's a trip.
It's a trip, right?
It's really more amazing
Yeah.
that when, for example, when we're children, we are explained about the water. This cycle of water. So when I was
Mm-hmm.
a kid, I thought like, okay, yeah, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
So the water
Mm-hmm.
comes in down in rain, and then it goes up, it moves through clouds.
Mm-hmm.
But that process, it's really magical. Like how
Mm-hmm.
the same substance
Mm-hmm.
keeps water being water from earth,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like a, how do you say riego? Like shh.
Yeah, rain,
No, like field when you are
spraying.
praying,
Yeah,
like an
spray.
automatic spray through
Yeah,
all over the
spray.
planet,
Yeah.
and it goes and turns into gas and water and solid. It's really magical, like the concept of sublimation, condensation, or whatever the
Mm-hmm.
process. It's just a concept, but the reality between that magical thing that it's happening
Mm-hmm.
every the water, for
Mm-hmm.
example, it's way more depth than the concept. Like, oh yeah, I get the cycle of water, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know that
We
this
have
thing?
we have a Nana with us here. A Nana, the illuminated dog.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Hello, Nana.
So do you think dogs can aim to be humans, or humans aim to be like dogs?
Maybe we've all been called a dog before. uh, when somebody sees me like a dog, I become a dog. So.
You say I'm a dog. I'm a dog. So when you were saying about this, what dies and what is born,
Mm.
it seems that it's like if we think about the present moment, consciousness evolving every instant into everything in the universe,
Mm.
and then
Mm.
it's like that same consciousness decided to experience itself through several eyes
Mm.
and have this eternal self without. There's this amazing quote that you cannot you cannot die because you were never born.
Yeah.
But it seems that in this
Mm.
eternal I that
Mhm.
exists within us, that we are all with one and none, we have this arbitrary start and end during this journey. Like during this eternal journey without existing and existing everything,
Mm.
like consciousness has this mechanism of seeing everything for the first time.
Sure. You, notice how your question is coming back to the first question, which is waking in dream state, right?
Yes.
So just maybe perhaps there is actually something there to be learned from the dream state, right? Because neuroscientifically, right, we know the brain is usually using the same networks to create the experience of the waking state. There's no such thing as perception. Even the Buddha said this, and this is a quote that a lot of people will miss. It's overlooked. But the Buddha said perception is deception.
What do you mean by that?
Perception is deception. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So follow me on this. We're going into the science, right? Okay, so photons, light photons, hit the retina, and then from that a really complex chemical reaction happens in the optic nerve to the back part of the brain, to the optical cortex. The images are even flipped. And then a couple really, really complicated processes will happen electrochemically there that will manifest an image or a sound or a sensation in the motor cortex. Okay, so the idea of perception, I think a lot of the times, I mean, for myself, I'll speak personally, I had the impression that my brain was taking pictures or videos. But that isn't what's happening. What's happening is projection. A movie is being projected by the brain. And what you see is based on what you believe and what you label, and something called reification.
Reification.
Reification is specifically defined as you projecting and believing qualities onto an object, any object separate from you, that are essentially and ultimately there from their own side, without your mental projection and without your conceptual labeling. That's reification. You
Okay.
are making something to be absolutely real, separate from consciousness, right?
That's amazing.
Yeah, and this is always the first step of ignorance, and it's also the first step of mental suffering. Always the first step. You really believe it's real. You did this to me. You betrayed me. You betrayed me. And there's the reification is the first step. So it reminded me of that, and this process of perception, right, literally is projection, according to science, according to our evidence about how the yeah.
So
And it's the same for the dream state. The dream state is exactly the same. It's the same process in the brain for the dream state as it is for the waking state. So where is this water you're talking about, right?
you see it in my mind.
Well, what isn't in your mind, right?
It depends how do I define my mind. If my brain.
Absolutely,
or
doesn't it? It depends on your knowledge of the subject, what an object is.
Yes.
You can never know what an object is until you're absolutely clear on what the subject is. Because the subject is the projector of the object. It's not spirituality, it's science. Why do you think Schrödinger, the quantum physicist, when he was asked, when Schrödinger was asked, how do you explain your findings right, in quantum physics to a child? And he drew a picture of a universe that is an eye, like an eye,
Yes.
right? Ojo,
Ojo.
an eye with a tail, and the tail is the cosmos with stars and universes. And the tail comes up, and the eye is looking at its own tail, right? So he defined his understanding of the universe as an observer observing itself. One observer observing itself. No bunch of little separate eyes. Oh, in a unified field, where are these separate eyes? Where are they? Right? And then you also have the unified ecosystem. So you might be thinking, okay, we have water, fire, air, and space, right? But in terms of quantum understanding, right, it's all one ecosystem
That's the field that
of,
they call.
of energy, right? And even mass has been taken out of the equation, right? It's all one unified field of energy, completely 100% unified.
But the thing is,
Yeah.
I just realized that energy is defined by science as not a thing, but as the amount of labor to transmute or to go from one state to another. But it's not a thing. Like most of the spiritual people, or they say that energy, we're 99% energy and 1% matter. But if energy is not a thing, it's like we're defining ourselves. If we are that energy, we're just this capacity of the same stuff that is not stuff of changing, because there's no mass or a thing in energy, at the microscopic levels.
Yeah,
It's just,
right. Yeah.
it's not a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But we believe, and most of people, we describe energy as a thing.
Right. Now you're right back to the subject-object split. You're coming right back, and so what's I find very interesting, and I'm just sharing something that helped me a lot. I find, but what was very interesting about Ramana Maharshi in India, the sage from India, who was Carl Jung's favorite, by the way. I just want you to know that was Carl Jung's teacher. A lot of people don't know that. Carl Jung said Ramana Maharshi is the whitest spot in a white space.
Is it like the what?
He is the whitest spot in a white space, which is India, right? So Ramana Maharshi was continuously questioned by his friends and his students, right? Ramana, you keep saying that the waking state and the dream state are both equally unreal, right? And the question was always the same, right? Okay, sure. There's an unreality to the waking state, right? That's similar to the dream state, right? But when I'm in the waking state and I'm sleeping and I go to sleep, right? There are other conscious observers who can see me while I'm sleeping, right?
Yes.
Right? And he said, well, yeah, just like it can happen in your dreams, right? He absolutely refused to budge on this topic. He refused to budge. He said the waking state is absolutely no more real than the waking state. He said the reason why the waking state feels more real is because you have more body identification in the waking state. Right? And he described the process of false identification, right? The false identification in the dream state, the illusion in the dream state, when you're not lucid, because you mentioned lucid dreaming. I'm glad that you did, because it's important. The most important element of being lucid in the dream is you know that that dream body is not you. You know that that dream body is not you and cannot be harmed, cannot be born, and cannot die. It was a manifestation of consciousness only, and nothing else. And you have water in dreams, and you have earth in dreams, and you have temazcales in dreams, and you have ceremonies in dreams, and you meet shamans in dreams. You go to meditation retreat in your dreams, right? All of this will all happen in a dream. And what's the source, right? The source of that dream is consciousness.
I think it's amazing, you
Right.
know, like the thing that the eye, that it's going through those like a peephole, like an individual
Yeah.
peephole, but behind the peephole is like one eye observing itself through different peepholes.
Yeah.
But that process, I find it really interesting,
Right.
and I think that it's supposed to be a little bit hard to enlightenment, to realization, to let go, to join with the source and with the non. Like it's not like the villain that it's us, our ego, and it's a good villain. You know, if it was easy, like if you did like, okay, I'm gonna tap your shoulder and you will be enlightened, it will be, oh no, come on, I'm the old and the non, like so fast.
Yeah.
No, I want two more. You know, like
Yeah.
in the movie. You know,
Yeah.
in the
Just
structure
take the
of
pill.
the movie. Yeah,
Just take the blue pill, or is it the red pill or the blue pill?
I don't remember.
I think it's the blue pill. Take the blue pill. Yeah,
Blue pill.
I think so. Just take the pill.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
if you take it, it would be boring. You know, if the same consciousness is imagining itself being a wide range of variety and through different peoples, it would be boring. And the question should be, why is creation? Why does creation exist? And I will say, why not?
Yeah, there we go.
You know,
You got
like-
that would be my answer. I'm not going to say I know, but if I had an answer, it would be why not? Right? Look around. Pretty beautiful, don't you think? Look around. I mean, I
Yes,
don't think I
because
could do a
even
better
though
job. Do
we
you
in
think you
this-
could do a better job?
I don't.
No. I mean, I've seen some pretty beautiful things. I've seen some things that
I could reactivate the bar that was.
yeah, the rebar. No, it's so they can build another one, right? So it serves a function, but yeah, visually an eyesore.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned something that I was curious about. You said something about, well, the why, right? The why, right? The meaning, right? What's the meaning of it? Right? What's the meaning?
Like
What's the meaning of all this?
it's
right?
really like
Yeah.
a logical question between the intellect, like why? Like why should I get up morning and try to get some money and blah and please others and follow the same day? Like why?
All right. So I'll take a stab. Why not? Why not once in a while try to put your flag in the sand, even if it's in the sand, right? So there's a few interesting elements about existence. Number one, we all know it's precious, right? We protect existing living things from being harmed, babies, people in distress. We protect ourselves from harm, right? We, in general, we want to live. We prefer life over annihilation or death. I mean, you think about a cancer patient and how much pain and suffering they go through just to survive it, right? So, existence, your existence, right? Naturally, my existence, right? I love it, right? And out of all the things I could have in the world, right? Ultimately, I would come to the conclusion that to have more time would be the one thing that would be the most precious, right? So a dying person, right, who happens to be wealthy, would give everything they have for one more year, right? They'd give it all away, wouldn't they? Right? So existence is what we love the most. So could it be that existence is love and love is existence, and our existence is our being, the capital B, and we love it the most? Could it be that this existence, we love it the most because it is love? Our existence gives us happiness,